Setting the meeting. Let's get this going. All right, we are now live on Facebook. Welcome, Sanjeev. I'd like to thank all our viewers that are watching right now. So let me introduce myself real quick. I'm Joseph Suarez. I'm one of the coaches here at Athletes Edge Performance Center in the Philippines. As I mentioned before, we have a special guest with us on our Facebook Live session, Sanjeev Javia. Thank you, Sanjeev, for joining us today. How are you doing?
Hey, buddy, I'm fantastic, man. Thank you so much for the opportunity. We're just having a nice, sunny, warm day here in Scottsdale, Arizona, but all is well, yeah.
Yeah, right. Awesome, awesome. And so, I'll be a quick background. I've been sharing on our IG and my Facebook on your background, and it's a really impressive resume. So you started out at University of Michigan, right? We'll go Wolverines.
Yeah.
So take us through that. Then that you created your own wellness group. You've been on the board of many health organizations, and started your own new company called Pros Sports Nutrition. And so I guess just give us a rundown on like how you got started in the field of nutrition, right? And from Michigan, and let's get the ball rolling from there.
Yeah, sure. You bet. You bet. Yeah. So like you mentioned, I grew up in Michigan and I ended up going and doing my undergrad work at the University of Michigan. It was in the field of the sciences. So I have a biology and biopsychology degree. And I was actually planning on heading over to med school at Boston University, but I ended up starting another business that was actually outside of the science realm. It was in technology, but it ended up going pretty well for me. And I was moving actually New York from San Francisco. I was in San Francisco doing the work. And a friend of mine who was playing football for the Denver Broncos was in Denver and said,
Yeah,
hey, listen,
Brian
why don't you
Greasy,
come
right?
out here and hang out with me for a little bit? And to start a foundation, we ended up starting a foundation together. But during that time, actually, his buddy wanted to start a nutritional supplement company. And the original concept was to sell products exclusively to professional athletes. And I was fortunate to have a lot of friends from Michigan that ended up becoming professional athletes like Tom Brady and Brian Greasy and Marty Turco and Bill McCall and all these guys. And then he had a bunch of buddies as well too. So we just kind of grouped our
Right.
relationships together and started this nutrition company. And there was actually a formulator there that we had hired. And I ended up just learning a lot from him. And because I already had a background in science and did have a passion for anatomy and physiology and all that sort of stuff, not necessarily nutrition, more of the other type of sciences, but I grew to kind of appreciate the value of nutrition. That's how I kind of got started, and then started formulating my own products. And it's been now 15 years, 15
Wow,
years, 87 products, got my own formulation firm, got my own company, Pros. So it's been an awesome journey.
that's awesome, man. Geez, wow. And then those people that you mentioned, Tom Brady, I mean, like Brian Greasy, those are like, yeah, like Brian. You mentioned Brian Greasy. I was like, what? Like that's a name that I haven't like heard in a long time, man. That's wow. That's awesome, man. You're surrounded by those great names. So let's just get. I'm gonna ask you another question. So most people, I mean, I'm not gonna ask you just like what is nutrition. Right? It's such a broad topic, and that's such a. So most people love to work out, right? And afterwards, I guess the nutrition side, they don't really focus too much, right? They're just gonna go to like McDonald's or go, whatever and eat stuff. So why would it be important for them after the workout to concentrate on nutrition? So let's get the ball rolling with that question also. Like that's why would they need to focus on that aspect after the workout, right?
Yeah, really good question. Really good question. And I know a lot of people always talk about post workout or even pre workout. But really, if you're trying to get the most out of your engine, which is your
Right,
body, then you want to put the best fuel in all the time.
right,
It's not about just post-workout or pre-workout or right before bed or whatever, if you want to use nutrition properly, and if you want to optimize your engine, then you should be taking care of that engine all of the time,
Mm,
because nutrition actually works on a compounding effect.
right.
Um, I think it's kind of best described with hydration, in which, if you are out on a run and you are filling up the tank, then you're already at an impairment. Because really, what you should be doing is you should be out on that run and you should just be just topping off the tank. And the only way to actually top off the tank is to be able to be fully saturated or fully hydrated before the activity. So it's the same thing here, is that, the essence is how do you get the most out of your workout? Well, yes, there's something in relation to what you do before, after, but really it's what you do all the time.
Right. Yeah, that's awesome. I like how you phrase that. It reminds me of that Von Miller. I think it was Von Miller who said, I don't fuel a Ferrari with diesel fuel. I fuel it with premium gas, right? And I love how you said about that. And so most people are focused a lot on. Let's get to the next question. I know a lot of people are focused on macronutrients, right? You get your carbs, your fats, and protein. So what's your recommendation, like protein per day? I mean, like minimum amount per meal, and then let's go with the like timing relative to training. Those three aspects. Maybe let's start with that.
Yeah, great. So with macronutrients, which are proteins, carbs, and fats, right?
Right.
There's two conversations to be had, right? There's the conversation which is how much of those macronutrients that you should get, like you just mentioned right there, and then also the quality
Ooh.
of those macronutrients,
Right.
right? So if I said, hey, listen, you know what? I think that you should be getting, 60% of your calories from carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that you should get 60% of your carbohydrates from white bread, which is, it's a carbohydrate and it's a carbohydrate calorie, but it's not necessarily the healthiest, best form of that carbohydrate, right?
Right. Right.
So I think there's a conversation, to be aware of, that it's also the quality of that. But as far as the percentages, I think that the best, as a performance athlete, you do need to be conscious of how much carbohydrates that you're consuming. It's
Mm,
carbohydrates for a performance athlete is
right.
very valuable. We're not talking about weight loss. We're not talking about because you hear a lot of negative things about carbohydrates. And it's not that carbohydrates are something that are detrimental to the body. It's
Mm-hmm.
just that carbohydrates can be detrimental. Excess carbohydrates can be detrimental based on what your goals are and what your activity is. So,
Right.
to answer your question directly, is that, I think that a performance athlete should start with a ratio of about 30% of their calories coming from protein, 40% of their calories coming from carbohydrates, and then 30% of their calories coming from healthy fat sources.
Okay.
So you start there, but then you got to kind of listen to your body. And if all of a sudden you feel like you don't have a lot, you're feeling sore. Let's say you feel sore a lot. Well, then what you might want to do is you want to up your carbohydrate calories.
Oh,
If you feel like you're not building enough muscle, or feel like you should be building muscle, you may want to up your protein. You know what I
mm,
mean? Right?
right.
It's
Right.
it's kind of it's not an exact science, and that's why there's so many different philosophies out there,
Right.
is
Right.
because, and we won't talk about this, but you can get into the whole genetics
Yeah.
and how your body actually metabolizes some people metabolize protein better than others and all that, but you don't have to do all those expensive genetic tests to figure it out. You could just kind of, feel it. feel it and try things.
Right. Awesome, man. Right. So we got a question from one of the owners here. One of the owners here at Athletes Edge, Chris Palanca, Coach Chris Palanca. He's asking, what's your take on working out in a fasted state?
This is really great. Yeah, based on your goals,
Right.
right? I think it can be very beneficial. Okay, right? And there's two actually things, right? There's the concept of actually working out on a fasted state. And then there's also the concept that has been gaining some traction, which is fasting after your workout. Okay,
Oh,
right?
okay. Right.
Now, so let's touch on the first one, fasting um, on fasting before a workout.
Okay.
The essence is, remember, is getting 100% out of your workout. So let's take, for instance, me. Okay, right?
Right.
So I work out first thing in the morning, so around 6 a.m. Okay, right? So I'm able to wake up and feel like I get 100% out of my workout, even though I haven't eaten anything.
Mm.
Okay, right? Now, how I know this is I've actually ate a little something and then see how I felt during my workout, and I didn't feel any difference. So therefore, I said, well, hey, listen, if I didn't feel any difference, then you know what? Let me not eat. Because here's the thing, I'm looking for a more leaner body. And so I'm looking for opportunities to break down fat. So when you fast before a workout, what you're essentially doing is you are forcing the body into getting energy from fat. That's what you're doing. Okay, right? You're basically, it's kind of like saying, oh no, some people do intermediate fasting. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
And they don't eat like until noon or 1. Well, what they're doing is they're just basically saying, hey, listen, I'm going to wake up. I'm not going to eat anything until noon. But I'm going to do activity from the time that I wake up till noon. So I'm going to force my body to go use fat as a primary energy source, because usually it would go get the carbohydrates or whatever that I've consumed when I ate breakfast.
Right.
Well, what do you think you're doing for your workout? You're basically just shortening the fasting period because you ended up doing an activity that had a higher metabolic activity, which just basically said, well, you know what? Instead of fasting for 4 hours, you could just probably get a workout in and it's going to feel like you fasted 4 hours in 2 hours. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right. Yeah. Wow. Dang. So yeah, I mean, and well, how about those? We're obviously a lot of people are talking about weight loss, right? So a couple of juniors that come to me, and then a lot of clients that here, they have a hard time gaining weight, right? So, like for me, when I was in high school, I mean, pretty high metabolism. It was tough for me to pack on pounds, right? So I kind of just hacked. I don't know. I kind of might have done it in a healthy way. Like I had my mom's Sam's Club card, and I just went out to get a bunch of protein, like protein, muscle milk and protein bars. So I guess what's your advice on a healthier way for those juniors that have a hard time, like they're kind of skinny, they have a hard time putting on mass, right?
Yeah. Okay. So here's the thing is that uh, it's very difficult. It can be difficult to eat really healthy and gain all the calories from that you would need from nutrition to help you to be the sole or primary way for you to gain weight. Okay? Because a lot of healthy foods unfortunately don't carry a lot of calories. Let's use the example of vegetables. Okay, right?
Mm, right,
Vegetables, we would all love to eat a ton of vegetables because it is the healthiest thing that you could consume. The only issue is that those vegetables have a ton of fiber in it. So they end up taking a lot of volume in your stomach, in your system, so it doesn't allow you to eat a lot. And they don't carry a lot of calories,
Mhm.
right? So then what you try to do is you try to replace some of that or add things like healthy fat, like avocado and coconut and butter and things like that. But you don't want to overdo that either, right? So here's what to remember is that yes, you can gain some weight through nutrition, but really where you gain the significant amount of weight is through your workout. You need to build muscle, and you need to build muscle, and you need to work out like you're building muscle. The magic happens in the gym, okay, right? When it's relation to gaining weight, okay,
Right.
right? So so what I would do is that, I would try to get in as many calories as I possibly could. And the number one thing that would help you to do that is to eat more frequently,
More
because you got
frequently.
to
Right.
manage the amount of volume your system is going to take. Your stomach is like a muscle, and so it will expand. So if you're somebody that isn't used to eating a lot, then you've got to work out your stomach almost like you work out your muscle, where it kind of helps expand. And then you got to do some kind of maybe some simple small things, like, hey, you know what, that's the value of some of the muscle milk and the gainers and all that sort of stuff, is that it was a really easy way for you to get in calories, and you didn't have to do a lot of eating. You know what I mean, right?
Right.
It's like you're making these kind of high calorie healthy shakes, and so you've got a protein shake, and you're eh, eh, adding avocado, and you're adding, some oatmeal, you're adding, and you're pulverizing everything, and so you can drink a shake that is 600 or 700 calories, which is difficult for you to actually eat a meal that's going to be healthy, that is going to be 600 or 700 calories,
Right. What's your take on like BCAAs and protein shakes? I mean, it's a pretty broad question right there. But I mean, what do you think? Would you recommend them for people that have a hard time gaining that weight? I mean, or have a hard time getting the
well
protein in?
Yeah, well, brand chain amino acids are the building blocks, obviously, of protein.
Right.
So you're not going to be gaining a lot of caloric value from brand chain amino acids.
Right.
But what you will do is you will help to feed the muscle, which, if you're going out there and working out and doing heavy weight, doing low reps, getting plenty of recovery and rest to give your body the most anabolic environment to have, that would be beneficial. But then the protein, obviously, that's a great way to kind of do it. I mean, I like some of these. I don't like all performance supplements,
Mm-hmm.
but the ones that, I think are really valuable is, I think protein's really valuable. I think glutamine's really valuable. I think branched chain amino acids are great. I think creatine is great. I think ZMA, zinc magnesium aspartate, is a really good supplement. Um, uh, I think that, no, some of these other ones, like the pre-workout stuff,
Right. Right.
usually pre-workout stuff, if it's really going to be of any value, is just going to be a stimulant type of product. You know what I mean, right?
Right.
Um, I don't really know, how many other ingredients that you would put into a formula that's a pre-workout that's really going to serve the purpose of being a pre-workout, which is just an energy booster, which I'm not here to quite, I got plenty of energy before my workout. I'm not saying that everybody does. Okay. Right.
Right.
But what I would do is that, if you do need it, then yeah, there's nothing bad about, certain levels of caffeine and things like that, which is probably the only stimulant that's valuable.
Right. Right. And so I listened to. I believe you were on Sean. I forgot his last name. Anyways, yeah, you guys went off the bat and talked about hydration. Can you explain like all the viewers about what's your take on hydration? And it's yeah,
Yeah,
this is it
yeah.
was really interesting. I was listening to it. I was like, oh, I'm gonna let you take the floor.
Yeah, yeah, sure. No, no, no. And so hydration is the most important nutrient and nutrition that you can put in your body. And you should know this logically because of the fact that you can go out days with carbs and fats and proteins and but you can't go days without hydration. Okay, right?
Mm,
And
right.
so that just goes to show you that if there's any super food out there, it's water. Water is the superfood, okay, right?
Right.
Because you can't live without it, okay, right? You can live without acai and pomegranate and kale and all that sort of, but you can't live without water. And so that just also lets you know how important it should be as part of your nutritional lifestyle.
Mm,
So it shouldn't be something that you just do when you're thirsty. It should be something that you do on a schedule. If you're anyone, but especially if you're a performance athlete and you're trying to get as much as you possibly can out of your engine, then you would want to make sure that the most valuable fuel that you could put into your engine is actually timed. It's
mm,
actually precise. It's actually calculated. It's actually all that sort of stuff. I mean, you wouldn't, if somebody told you, hey, listen, you know what? This food is the most important thing that you can put into your body. You'd say, okay, how much should I take? When should I take it? How frequently should I do? Well, you should do that with water. That's number one. Then the number two thing is that you got to remember that hydration and being hydrated is based on not how much water you consume, but how much water you actually absorb. And what I mean is by cellular hydration, how much water actually gets into the cell. It doesn't matter to a certain extent how much water is outside of the cell in this extracellular fluid. It's the intracellular fluid, how much water's inside the cell. So that's based on how you're able to pull that water into the cell. And how that actually happens from a physiological standpoint, from a cellular standpoint, is it needs to be pulled in through different types of concentration gradients and specifically electrolyte concentrations. So this is why we have the conversation about sodium and potassium and calcium and magnesium and chloride, is these are electrolytes that are found outside of the cell and inside of the cell. And if all of a sudden you're consuming water and there is electrolytes that are more concentrated in or out of the cell, it will pull in or it'll take out. Okay, right?
right.
So this is why what you want to do is you want to make sure that you just don't drink water, but you also maybe add some things to water like electrolytes, like salt. I mean, something similar, simple as Celtic salt or Himalayan salt. None of that processed salt I'm talking about, but the
Right.
regular, the natural rock salt. Just a couple of those granules can change the concentration of that water and allow you to hydrate better.
Mm, what about Gatorade? Um, what's your take on that? On like the sports drinks, like your Powerade, Gatorade.
Yeah, so I think that Gatorade and Powerade, a lot of people talk negatively about those drinks. And the reason why they don't fit um, most people's hydration solution is because they're not made for workouts that are an hour or 90 minutes. They're made for workouts that are longer because you've got so much sugar content.
Right.
And so if you're working out for an hour, 45 minutes, whatever it is, hour and 15 minutes, you don't need that much sugar. Actually, what you need is the electrolytes and the water in there, but you'll never use up a lot of that sugar. And then also the second problem with that sugar is that it actually blocks the ability for you to have gastric empty. It doesn't allow you to empty your gastric system, right? And that's why you'll notice that if you drink a lot of Gatorade or sugary drinks like this very quickly, you feel bloated. Well, that's because all this sugar has kind of blocked the channels that all this water is trying to get out from. And essentially, then you just are holding that hydration, if you will. So what I would do is I would take that Gatorade and I would drink some of it and I'd keep filling it up with water over and over and over again, right? And just basically diluting how much sugar's in that bottle and allowing you to get great hydration. You're stuck with the sugar that's already in the Gatorade, so at least you're not drinking all of it at once, and you still gain some of the benefit of the electrolytes, So you can work around that formula.
Right, right. Awesome. Whoa. That's exactly what I heard from, man, that's awesome. I just wanted you to share with our audience on hydration. That's awesome. So let's get into supplements. You've created a lot of supplements with being part of the industry, right? So what's your take on multivitamins, right? Or what is there a certain supplement that say I'm a we deal with a lot of performance athletes, but also general fitness people that just want to lose weight and be active, right? So I guess we can divide it up into those that are in performance, that have a lot of performance goals, and just those that are in general fitness just want to lose weight, right? So what's your take on supplements?
Yeah. So listen, like,
Multivitamins, right?
I'm a formulator of nutritional supplements, and so one would think that I would be incredibly biased towards supplements, and I am. I find value in supplementation, but also I want people to understand that there's a role of supplementation. Supplementation is to be a supplement to the best diet that you can do for yourself. And because that's when you truly gain the greatest benefit from supplementation, is when you have done everything that you could, and nobody's telling you to be perfect. They're just trying to tell you to be the best version of yourself. And I'm not here to judge that. Only you're there to judge that. And so when you decide, okay, this is the best version of myself that I can be from a nutritional standpoint, then the conversation of supplementation comes into the realm.
Okay.
And then the question becomes, what's the best supplement? Well, the best supplement is the one that you are deficient in the most. So if all of a sudden somebody said, you know what, Jeevers, this is the best version that I can be of myself nutritionally. And, I never go outside. Um, I don't drink a lot of dairy. I don't eat a lot of foods that have vitamin D. Let's just be exact. I don't get in the sun, all the, about, well, then the best supplement for you is vitamin D.
Right.
So it's not protein or creatine or a multi or whatever it is. See, you got to figure out what's best for you. Now, here's the thing, though. It's not always easy. It's not always the easiest way, like I told you. Okay, right?
Right.
So here's my recommendation: is that you should always start with a good multi,
Okay.
because a multi is a foundational, fundamental nutrient set in which other nutrients can benefit from and can be enhanced. So I'm not saying that you're not going to get a great benefit from taking vitamin D without a multi. But what I am saying is that if you took a vitamin D with a multi, you'll get more out of that vitamin D, because that vitamin D is going to interact with vitamin K and with calcium and with vitamin E and some of those other things that are actually in that multi that will provide it the foundation to do more. So if I was trying to, if somebody said, hey, Jeevers, I'm only going to take one thing, like what should I take? I would say, hey, be safe. You might as well just take a multi. And the thing is, with supplementation is you get what you pay for. So if you go to the store and you go buy a Centrum multivitamin for $10 or whatever it is, you're getting $10 worth of value. If you go out of the store and you go buy, Thorn Lab or whoever it is, or Pure Encapsulation, whoever it is, and it's a $20 or $30 multivitamin, you're getting $20 or $30.
Okay.
And so you're
Okay.
getting the everybody always thinks, oh, it's marketing, it's this or that. It really isn't. The margins are so tight now that basically, if you're paying for a product,
You're getting
for
one
the
of the.
most part, you're getting the value out of that.
Okay. Okay. Gotcha. Gotcha. Awesome. So now we got a question. Another question from the wife of Chris Blanca, Coach Chris Blanca. So, what would you recommend for women who are experiencing hormonal imbalances, particularly estrogen dominance?
Yeah. So I mean, listen, I think that hormonal imbalance is the root issue. Is the body is well, no, it's kind of like the conversation that we've been talking about, the endocannabinoid system and CBD and things like that, right? But it is you got to find there's the you could say, somebody could say right away, well, you know what? I think she should take selenium. Okay, right? Because selenium is one of the most powerful nutrients to promote greater health in the thyroid, which is one of the master kind of, centers for hormonal health. Okay, right? Some people could say, well, wait a second, you could take essential fatty acids. Essential fatty acids are the building blocks of all hormones. And so if she's having an enhanced response to estrogen, okay, right? That
Okay.
means that there's some sort of imbalance in some other hormone, okay, right? It could very well be the regulation of testosterone in a woman, okay, right?
Right.
And so this is becoming, it's not that easy of a question to say, hey, listen, you know what? Because you have too much of this, it's because you need this particular, no, nutrition and nutrients don't work like that. You know what I mean? Right? Is that everybody wants them to work like medicine, where you look at a symptom and then you pick the right nutrient for that symptom. Unfortunately, it doesn't work that easy. And especially when it's a hormonal issue. When it's a hormonal issue, it's multifactorial. So there's a lot of things that are off there. And it could be the fact that, hey, is her nutrition off? Is she consuming too much carbohydrates? Does she have high inflammatory levels? She has high inflammatory levels. She might want to change her diet or her stresses or things like that. It's just that hormonal things, just ending here, is that it's not that easy of an answer than some of this other stuff. She really has to take a step back and look at her entire lifestyle, from her nutrition to her movement to her mindset,
Mm.
and say, okay, where am I creating chaos here? Because that chaos is manifesting itself into a hormonal imbalance. Because do remember, hormones are just chemical messengers. And so if if a certain message is getting out more than it should, it's because there's a few things that are off. If that makes sense.
Hmm. Interesting. All right. All right. Yeah. And then how about let's go into the fact that you've worked with uh, you've worked with high performance athletes, right? You've been around them. So what was it like to one, work with them? Like maybe if you ever provided a meal plan for them, and yeah, let's go into that. Like, what was it like with going into that state from, you went from college, then you created your own wellness group, and yeah, I know
Yeah.
people want it. Yeah.
So working with athletes, it's interesting because a lot of people ask me about like what it's like to work with athletes, and what are they like? What are they
Right.
like? Right? And and what are they like nutritionally or whatever? Right? Here's the thing: is that whether it's an athlete or what, any type of high performance person that understands the value of nutrition, and I'm not saying that everybody does, right? But the ones that understand the value of nutrition, they are as precise with their nutrition as they are with the rest of their training, because they look at nutrition as training.
Mm.
So, there's always the famous example of, Tom Brady and how he eats, and
Yeah, yeah. TB12,
how,
right? The TB12 diet, right?
yeah, TB12 diet, and how strict he is, or how calculated he is. But he's not strict, he's not calculated, he's precise. but he also has the same level of precision with his throwing. He has the same level of precision with his study. I mean, he wasn't the first guy to do it. You know, there were guys, you know, when I was around, when I started, there was a guy, Bill Romanowski, who was a linebacker for the Broncos, if you
Yeah.
remember, and
Yeah.
for the Raiders. And there were guys like Jerry Rice, you know. Um, there weren't a lot of them, not as much as they are today, because people began to kind of appreciate the importance of nutrition. It was almost like, oh, nutrition's just food, I'll just eat whatever I want, I got to focus on my training. And then more research came out, and people started realizing, wait a second, wait, nutrition is just as important as training. And then more research came out that said, well, this is logical, but wait a second, your training is based on how good your fuel is. And then
Right.
blah blah. And so now everything has become such a science, because everybody's looking for that edge.
Yeah.
And so to work with these athletes, you know, is to work with someone who, you know, just has precision in everything that they do. And nutrition is just another thing that they do. And the ones that do it, you know, um, as Tom has probably defined, is the ones that get on it earlier are the ones that have the ability to reap the rewards longer,
Mm.
you know.
Oh, I like
I
that.
don't think he would be playing as long as he's playing if he would have started it 10 years later. And maybe he would be playing even longer if he started 10 years later. Who, you know, logic would say the longer you take care of your body, the longer your body will take care of you.
Mm.
So,
Right, right. Is there a specific, like maybe like a case study on like, okay, I worked with this athlete. He had some sort of, he wanted to work on X, whatever, and then you worked with him and created that meal plan, and then all of a sudden, like boom, like his performance just went like whoa. People, I mean, you just see his numbers, the stats go up, and then like you can see his season, like from the last season to this season, and so on. Like there's a whole 360 degree on his performance. Like, was there? Can you share with us something like that, if that's ever happened to you?
yeah, yeah, you know, I mean, gosh, there's let's see, there's just, I'm trying to think of like the best story. Um, you know, so many guys had such amazing results, and it's logical because it's nutrition, you know what I mean? They're
Yeah.
starting from a place where maybe they weren't doing a lot of the good things. You know what I had, actually, one of the stories I guess that sticks out in my head is that there was actually a UFC fighter, Bobby Lashley, who now actually fights, or not fights, he does the WWE stuff or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah,
And the reason why he sticks out in my head is, man, he was just a specimen, but his nutrition was really, really bad, you know, right? And but he was still able to you know, he looked fantastic, you know, he
yeah. Right,
performed, you
right.
know, right? But the thing is he was always had these nagging injuries.
Ooh,
His
okay.
foot, his ankle, you know, he couldn't even run, you know, he had all this, right? And you know, we cleaned up his diet and we got really consistent with his diet. And you know, was he able to perform better? Sure, he was able to perform better, but here's the thing, this was this was 15 years ago,
Mhm.
14 years ago. Look at him now. He doesn't look any different than he did 14 years ago,
Mhm.
you know, right? And that just kind of goes to show you like what it can actually do, you know, right? It's like you
Right.
would love to say the story of like, hey man, here's a guy who was, you know, he was a four stringer, but then all of a sudden he cleaned up his nutrition and now he's a Super Bowl champion or whatever. And like, I'm sure there's stories out there like that, but these guys were, you know, nutrition, you know, was that last edge that they needed, is
Mhm.
that last edge, you know, right?
Right.
And hey man, there's probably a bunch of guys who, that I didn't know a lot about. Their success wasn't a Super Bowl thing. It
Right.
was the fact that they stayed in the league,
Mm.
because really
There
they
you go.
were on
Right.
the bubble,
Right.
right? And that's how you got to think of it. I mean, all these athletes and all these kids and everyone that you train is like, we were talking about it on Sean's thing, is that, you may think that you're great, but, you know, wait till you go into another pool of guys, and you realize you ain't that great.
Mm.
And the ones that are really uh, do well are the ones who are constantly thinking, man, you know what, there's somebody out there working out harder, there's
Right.
somebody out there better, there's somebody out there coming up. So you know what I'm going to do, I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to beat that guy down. And that's when they start thinking about all of this other stuff that, for the most part, they don't people don't like to, and people don't like to focus on nutrition because
Mm-hmm.
it's not always fun.
Yeah. Right. Right. So when the see when they do come up to you, right, and they have this, do you just, is it like a, let's sit down and then take this step by step, right, and like, okay, here's, let's look at your diet, okay, let's remove this, let's remove, I mean, like, what is
It
it?
is. It's so easy. I mean, there's not a lot of science to this. Everybody tries to
Blood
make it
test,
out to
right?
be like so like scientific, and it really isn't. Because if you think about it, guys, what it is, it's like it it first starts. It's more math than it is food.
Right.
So first, you got to start off by, okay, how many calories should you be consuming? And then after you figure out how many calories you should be consuming, and remember, that's trial and error, you then break it down into, like you mentioned earlier, the macronutrients, proteins, carbs, and fats, right? And then you get those numbers, and then you go and you pull in the numbers of food. And you say, okay, a chicken breast has these numbers,
Mm.
oatmeal has these numbers, broth has these numbers, these are the numbers. And then you fit those numbers to this. And now you got a nutritional plan. Okay, right? Then comes the next thing, which is, okay, now I've got the foods. Now I got the amount of foods. Now I got to figure out, when should I consume them? Then you have to look at your lifestyle. So then, like the first questions I would ask after I figured out the numbers was, okay, so when do you wake up? I wake up at 6 a.m. Okay. When do you go to bed? I go to bed at 10 p.m. Okay. Tell me everything that you do
Mm.
70% of the time.
Okay.
Okay. Well, 70% of the time, I usually watch film from 10 to 12. I do treatment from 12 to 1. I get a break at 2. I got training from 4 to 5. And all of a sudden, this whole schedule gets laid out. And then basically, you take those foods and you fit them in between these times in which you can.
Mm. Right. Right.
So
So
if
you have their
somebody says, hey,
schedule,
listen,
and then
yeah,
they
yeah, you
just,
literally build out, like, I think of it as Lego pieces,
right.
right? And so I got all these little Lego pieces. I just got to put them in the spaces, because if so, hey, people are like, oh, you ought to eat every 2.5 hours. Well, wait a second. If the guy goes from treatment to, interviews, and that happens 70% of the time, and that lasts 4 hours, well, he can't do that. So then you
Right.
got to think to yourself, okay, what is he going to have to do before the 4 hours to last him so that he doesn't get into an unhealthy state in those 4 hours? And then what am I going to do right after those 4 hours?
Right. That
That's how you
awareness.
got to. So it's really not difficult. It's just organizing
Right.
and
Right.
thinking about it.
Right. That awareness of, okay, like, this is my schedule, and then, okay, right.
That's why these athletes, they don't, Monday through Friday or whatever it is, you don't screw around with your schedule. They don't just say, oh yeah, I go to treatment at like 2, or, well, sometimes maybe I'll go at 4.
Mm.
No,
Yeah.
no, they put it on a schedule. Just listen, whether it's a high powered, whether it's somebody that's really, I'm not an athlete, but I got a lot of stuff I'm doing. So
Yeah.
guess what? Everything is on a schedule. Like, you can't call me from 10 to 12, right?
Right.
I'm having lunch all the time from 12 to 12:30. Like that doesn't change, right? And it's because I got stuff to do, and to do it efficiently, it's got to be on a plan, you know?
Right. Now going back to, I know just one more question back on hydration. Coke Zero. A lot of people, a lot of different. I've heard a lot of different theories about on Coke Zero. So what's your take on that? I mean, like UK, it's not the regular Coke, but now it's that's no
Yeah.
sugar.
Yeah. And so really the question isn't about Coke Zero. The question really is about what do I feel about non-nutritive sweeteners? Because
Mm,
to make Coke Zero zero, you have to use a non-nutritive
yeah.
sweetener that makes something taste sweet but doesn't have any caloric value. And there's all sorts of non-nutritive sweeteners. There's
Mm,
stevia, there's xylitol, there's sucralose, there's Ace K, there's yeah, there's other tagatose. There are all these non-nutritive sweeteners. Okay, right?
right.
Some of them are natural, like the stevias and the xylitols and the malatols and stuff, and some of them are made in the lab, chemicals like sucralose and Ace K and all that stuff. Okay, right? So what's my general take on it? My general take on it is that they're all not good. And they're all not good because even though the natural ones don't are natural and they don't have any calories, they do this one thing that is really unhealthy for you. It creates a level of sweetness that you become accustomed to. And when you do that, you end up creating a higher um, level of satisfaction for something that's sweet. So that when you do eat something that may have natural sugars, it's never going to taste as good. It's never going to be as sweet. So you're going to consume more of it. I always use the concept of, you drink Coke Zero, you drink Coke Zero, you drink Coke Zero. And because it is very sweet, excitotoxic, if you will, when you go have that cheesecake and you could be satisfied by just a few bites, you're going to eat the whole thing because the level of sweetness from a natural sweetened cheesecake is not going to be the same level as what you were drinking that Coke Zero for.
Right.
So I think it can get you into trouble, or I know it can get you into trouble. And then also the second thing too is that these non-nutrient sweeteners, they do have a impact on your insulin levels.
Mm, right.
Even though they're small, they do impact your insulin levels. But the problem is that there's no sugar for the body to pull because there's no sugar in the
In the
sweetener.
right.
So your insulin level ends up staying high. You're better off just eating sugar. You're better off just having, less sugar, but at least it's natural, you know?
Right. Right. Yeah. Get that. And then so we got another question. This is from a client student. So it has a tough time eating after the workout, right? So how would you, like they have the 45-hour win or 45-minute win, right? That window, right? You gotta eat your protein after your workout, right? Is so. What would you say to that guy that has a tough time, like with his eating habits after the workout?
Yeah. So I think you got to look at it like this, right? Is that, there's two tough times, um, definitions of tough times. The one of the definitions is hey, it's tough for you to eat food because you're not maybe you're just not hungry, or maybe when you eat right after a workout it may make you feel nauseated or something like that,
Mm,
which I could get. Okay, right? I don't know why he's saying he's got a tough time, but if it's something like that, I get it. I wouldn't freak out too much about that 45-minute window. I would freak out if it was 2.5 hours out,
yeah.
right? Um, uh, Secondly, is that, maybe are there certain foods that would be a little bit easier for you to consume rather than eating? Would a shake be better for you?
Right.
Um, Shake is going to be a lot easier on your digestive system. And so maybe that's a little bit better. Um, and then the thing is that, you know, you gotta, hopefully it's one of those two things, because if it's the third thing, which is I just don't feel like eating, well, you know, tough shit. Like, who cares? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I don't like doing a lot of stuff either. Okay, right? But you do it because of the benefit of it, you know, right? And so just know that if you don't eat within that 45 to hour window, you're just not going to be able to gain as much benefit from your workout as if you did. How much do you lose? I don't know. No one's I don't know if I've ever read a study that says, hey, listen, you know what? This group didn't eat 45 minutes and this group did, and they were able to do it. I don't think I've ever read anything like that, but I don't think it's like so significant where
Right.
it would be a big deal. You know what I mean?
Gotcha. Got one more question from we got from a golf coach, my golf coach here in the Philippines, Coach Mike K. He says, I was asking, what do you think about testing for food intolerance?
I like it. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I think that, you know, food intolerances, food allergies, you know, you got to work with your system. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Right. Like I did a post the other day. And if you guys are into nutrition and all that sort of stuff, please follow Ask
Yeah,
Jeevers. I
yeah.
think you'll
I was
love some
gonna,
of the
yeah, I'm
content.
gonna say
I
that.
know you like it.
Right.
I just try to teach on anything and everything, you know, right? So it's not just on one subject, it's on everything. But there was a post the other day, if you remember, it was about tomatoes,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the
Yep.
value of
All that.
tomatoes and how, what you want to do, just a little side note, if you want to get the most out of your tomatoes, is you would want to heat tomatoes, because when you do heat a tomato, you break its cellular structure, which then releases a very potent and valuable antioxidant called lycopene. And so if you're eating
Mm.
raw tomatoes, you don't get as much benefit. So, anyways,
Right.
um, one of the comments was a gal who said, hey, listen, you know what? Every time I eat tomatoes, it hurts my body, it hurts my system. So, what can I do? But I really love tomatoes. I love the taste of tomatoes. So, what can I do? And my answer to her is, don't eat tomatoes. Like, you know, you love tomatoes, but tomatoes doesn't love you. So I don't know why they don't love you. It could be a lot of different reasons why they don't love you, but there's nothing in a tomato that you can't get from something else. And if you try to force a food or whatever that doesn't work with you well, you're just going to create trauma and inflammation and damage to the body. So why would you do that? You know, right? So
Right.
yeah, food intolerances. I mean, I think that you want to be careful though a little bit, in the sense that, like, a lot of people will, if something doesn't sit with them right, they immediately think that it's a food intolerance, or they you know, and that could be due to the fact that they're, especially if you're older, you may just not have enough digestive enzymes,
Mm.
because as you age, you actually will lose the amount and potency of your digestive enzymes. So a lot of times, just taking a digestive enzyme supplement can help with that.
Right.
A lot of times, somebody may have discomfort, stomach discomfort, and their microbiome could be off. And so you want to take probiotics or to help to figure that out. I mean, you don't want to get into a state of having to remove good, natural, healthy food from the system, because the
Mm.
body wasn't made to do that. So if it's not fitting well, you might want to check out a few other things before you just completely get rid of the food. But even after you've checked that out, if you need to get rid of it, get rid of it. Who cares, you know?
Right. Awesome. Awesome. Wow. That it's a lot, so much good information. All right, but it's close winding down. Um, got a question. I mean, for those that are watching this, I just encourage everyone to listen to the about pros nutrition, and I don't want to dive too much into it because I might get in trouble here. But I mean, I just went on the website and I saw about I was looking at the gum, right? And then so I mean, I play. I'm a professional golfer here in the Philippines, along with being a trainer. So I mean, I looked last Masters, right? 2019 Masters, Tiger won, right? And everyone's looking at it at his press conference, like, dude, what do you like? And then everyone's looking at the gum, like, what were you, why are you chewing gum? Everyone's like, whoa, what's going on with Tiger now, right? And I'm a huge Tiger fan, so I noticed that too. I was like, why is he chewing gum? And I mean, I don't know if that has to deal with maybe contract issues, if he can't say that he can name a certain company that, but I mean, are people so I'm interested in that, the CBD gum, like, and can it, and I had another question from a friend, like another professional golfer, like, can somebody that smokes that or smoke that does vaping on the golf course, right? Can he replace that vaping with the CBD gum, right? I mean, it's illegal here in the Philippines, but I mean, I was just, if ever I was gonna, relax one, I would take the CBD. I'd be interested in trying it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, generally, what CBD does is it interacts with the system in your body called the endocannabinoid system
Mm,
that is responsible for balance and homeostasis. This is why you hear so many of these golfers, Bubba Watson, and all these guys taking a ton now CBD,
right.
is because it helps them to relax. It helps them to calm down. It helps them to get balanced, which is different than feeling sleepy.
Mm,
CBD doesn't make you feel sleepy. CBD is something that brings your body into balance, into this restful, relaxed state, which then helps you with focus and clarity and anxiety and all that sort of stuff.
mm,
That's why it's become so big in the sports performance world, is because you've
right.
got this natural nutrient that actually interacts with the body to bring it back into balance. So, yeah, interestingly, I developed the first CBD gum,
Mm,
and so that's how actually our company started. Is
right.
that we ended up getting a lot of golfers chewing our gum and using our products, and so that's why we have Dr. Ara Sapia, who's
Yeah, yeah.
the
From the
Ryder
golf
Cup,
channel. Yeah.
doctor, physician, the medical director on the Golf Channel, and we have Spencer Tatum, trainer to John Rahm, Damon Goddard, trainer to Jordan Spieth, and such. And so and so there's two conversations. One, that's the value of CBD and such, and secondly, what you mentioned is actually that just the act of chewing
Mm-hmm.
helps the
Right,
body to relax.
right. Like Jordan,
And
right?
helps increase this gas called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a vasodilator, increases circulation, helps you relax. That's why a lot of athletes will actually chew gum. You know what I
Mm,
mean? Right? While they're performing, because it helps them to just chill out, right?
right.
Because you're in this kind of, and so, yeah, we essentially had this great success last year with our gum. And then I just developed an entire line from that philosophy, and to use obviously CBD as the core, but then also a whole host of other nature rich nutrients like ashwagandha and reishi mushroom and clove and rosemary and
Mm,
vitamins and mineral glutamate. I just power packed my formulations with it. So it's really been exciting and it's fun.
right, right. Would somebody do you have any cases where somebody that's um, has a smokes a vape, does vape and whatnot? Does he have you had somebody that, oh man, I used to vape a lot, and then now I chew this CBD gum? Have you had
For
that or?
sure, for sure. We've had a lot of, because all the dangers of vaping,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh, people have stopped vaping or moved away from vaping, but they still want to get the CBD, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so our gum has been super, super helpful for them. We have another product that's a more concentrated tincture that you put underneath your tongue.
Right.
I mean, vaping is just another way to get CBD into the bloodstream. It's one of the more powerful ways because it's direct. Anytime you breathe something in, that's why essential oils are oftentimes you breathe them in, is it's a very powerful way to get whatever into the bloodstream. But if you can't do that because vaping's dangerous or whatever, then you want to take it sublingually. That's the second best way. The third best way is mucosally through your gum lining. And so that's why the gum and the tincture and stuff works.
Right, right. And then with just to clarify with people, like there's no THC obviously with your lines, right? It's just CBD.
Exactly. It's CBD. Our gum, our gummies, our CBD. And then the other products, we use an oil called full spectrum oil, which is it's the natural source of oil. So it has like trace and ultra trace amounts of THC. They're non-detectable. It's kind of like, I use the example of like asparagus. If you were to test asparagus, you would note that there's actually strychnine, the dangerous kind of chemical or whatever it is in thing, okay, right? But it's in such trace and ultra trace amounts that there's nothing, but inherently because it's from nature, it takes up everything that's from nature, you know?
Right, right. Awesome, awesome. Man, I mean, I encourage everyone to just check out the podcast on the pros and whatnot. I find it interesting. I mean, it's something that I guess it's new to I mean, new to the sport, new to the sports world, I guess, and whatnot. So thank you for sharing about that. I don't want to get too in trouble. I don't want to get in trouble by, unless someone asks a question right now, about it, but don't want to get too deep with that because I know
don't worry. I've got plenty of if you go on either Ask Jeevers or
right,
even on some of my stuff, you'll see I'm on like a podcast or an Instagram
right,
live or whatever, like almost every day. And
right,
so, and everyone's always asking me about this. And so I've always got those answers there. You
right.
can get them there if you want,
And it's great that you created your Instagram, right? It's fairly new, and I followed you one day, and then it was like, hey, wait, dude, thanks for following me, and I'm like, because I was browsing through Instagram, like, wait, I know this guy, like I listened to you, and I believe it's like, I think I was 4 years ago, like, from it was like longevity, and whatnot, and so the supplements and then I was like, oh man, I recognize this guy. And then I thank you for coming on our show. Thank you and then you're so um, cooperative with the timing and whatnot, and so flexible with
no problem. I've
the
been there,
schedule.
man. I've
And
been there. Yeah.
thank you. So yeah, that'll be it for our show. And thank you for again. So where can people follow you? Can Ask Jeevers, right? And then
Yeah, please, if you'd like to follow me, I love, like I said, if you love nutrition and wellness and all that kind of realm, I do a ton of it on my Instagram platform. It's called Ask Jeevers. So Jeevers. So Ask Jeevers. And then on my Facebook, I do a lot of videos as well too. And that's just my name, Sanjeev Javia.
awesome, yeah.
And you can check it out there. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and then I was encouraged. You mentioned Damon Goddard. He coaches Jordan Spieth. You're on his podcast, and that was awesome. That all the experts in different fields of sports and nutrition are, you're there and you're providing with them with the information on nutrition and this new aspect of CBD and pros. So, thank you again. Welcome. I guess I forgot to say welcome to the Philippines.
Yeah, I love it. That's
Originally
fantastic. That's
come out.
fantastic. Hope to be out there soon, man. Right? Get out and travel. It was
Yes,
beautiful.
sir. After the lockdown, I encourage you to stay safe. Thank you again, and yeah, stay safe in there with the lockdown. I mean, I know the couple sports, like there are like a couple golf tournaments going on in Arizona, right? I mean,
Yeah. The courses are open, so I don't know. Like, I don't know about tournaments or anything, but I know people are golfing. They don't. It not matter, right? So
right.
we'll see.
Awesome. Thank you again, Sanjeev.
Okay, buddy.
Jeevers,
Well, appreciate it, man.
take
Thanks.
care, man.